What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. What is theme and why is it useful to your story? And how do you find it? In today's episode of Writer Unleashed, we'll talk about what theme is and what it isn't, and how to arrive at yours. Stay tuned. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. What's the theme of your story? Why is it useful? And how do you arrive at a theme that resonates? Before we dive in, let's talk about what a theme is not. Now, often the theme is defined as the meaning behind your story, the central idea of your story, or the moral or lesson that you, the writer, wants the main character, and by extension, the reader, to learn from the story. And then there's usually a list of off-the-shelf themes: motherhood, or rich versus poor, good versus evil, revenge, coming of age, etc. Now, these are not themes. They're not useful to you as the writer, and they're off-the-rack ideas. They're abstract. They're not usable. Your theme is not a lesson. It's not a moral statement. It's not an off-the-rack abstract idea like redemption or revenge or courage and perseverance. The best definition of theme comes from Doug Glover. He says a theme is a general, usable statement of the author's belief about the world and human nature. What makes it usable is that it incorporates a statement about desire and a further statement about how the world works to thwart or interfere with that desire. So, number 1, it's a usable statement about your belief about the world and human nature. And number 2, it incorporates desire and how the world thwarts or interferes with that desire. In other words, it's why your story matters to you, because if it matters to you, it matters to your readers. Theme is your rock bottom belief about human nature and about the way the world works. That is the essence of voice. Love on its own, for example, is not a theme. Marriage is not a theme. Motherhood is not a theme. Good versus evil, not a theme. Why? Because they don't say anything about desire and obstacles. Desire is the engine of your plot. It determines the story's evolving question at the beginning of the novel, and it shapes the arc of your plot. Now, Freud introduced this theory called the pleasure principle. It's this idea that we want to move towards pleasure and get away from pain. right? Now, we don't have control over our desires. They're primitive. Most of our desires are primitive. So we're always somewhere on this continuum between pain and pleasure. And this is true for your main point of view character, the hero of your story. So your character starts off in some kind of pain at the beginning of the story, and he or she is moving towards that pleasure, that bliss, but reality and the world keeps getting in the way. It interferes. Now, Doug Glover believes that every story is about the disconnect between the self and the world, between getting what we want and the obstacles the world throws in our path. So let's say your main character's desire is for true love, but your deeply held belief is that all marriages are either unhappy or they ultimately end in divorce, or that love inevitably dies. So your rock bottom belief about true love is that it's not attainable, it doesn't last, it's bound to fail. Anna Karenina opens with this thematic statement: happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Now, your thematic statement doesn't have to be expressed in a sentence. It doesn't have to be stated verbatim in the story itself, but it can and should be repeated over and over in different variations through subplots or character thought. So as characters are thinking about their own situation, as characters are observing the world around them, it can be through dialogue or through different points of view if you're writing multiple points of view, or through your main character's consciousness. So this thematic statement becomes your through line that brings unity, coherence, and resonance to your story. Now, the reason a thematic statement is important and useful to you as you write your story or book is that it helps you anchor your story. Again, desire is the engine of your plot. It determines the plot question at the beginning, and it shapes your narrative arc. Your story's plot focuses on this evolving question. Will your character get what he or she wants or not? And the plot arc is shaped around your character pursuing that desire and the obstacles he or she encounters. So, for example, in Revolutionary Road, Frank and April Wheeler are living the American dream, which when we meet them in the novel has already become a trap from which they want to escape. But reality keeps getting in their way. Now, thinking in terms of your story's theme helps you become more connected to your story and to your characters. You need to plug into some complexity or evolving question that's driving you to write this story. For any work of art, and I consider a novel or memoir or short story a work of art, you need to sustain the time it takes to write it. Now, sometimes we lose touch with that initial impetus, but whenever you're lost in the mess of your draft, it helps to continually ask yourself how this story reflects some deeply held belief you hold that has to do with desire and what you believe is blocking that desire. So now that we know what the theme is and why it's useful to you as the writer and why it's useful to your story, let's look at how you can arrive at yours. So how do you arrive at your story's theme? Again, theme evolves out of some deeply held belief you have about how the world works. Your belief doesn't have to be correct. It doesn't have to be fact. It's not something you were taught to believe. It doesn't have to be logical or statistically correct or popular. It just needs to be true for you. It has to be something you believe is true, valuable, and meaningful about the world, something that's emotionally true for you. Now, often we don't know the theme of our work until after many, many, many revisions, and sometimes we're not aware of our work's themes until after we've finished writing it, or even after we've produced a whole body of work. And that's okay. But the best way to arrive at your story's theme is to not write to please anyone else. Write it for yourself first. What are you trying to understand through this particular piece of writing? What are you trying to understand about the world? Don't write what you think people will want to read. Write what's important to you. That's the only thing that will make you a great writer and make your story great. And it'll give you the impetus to stay the course and to bring your story to a level that feels true to your readers. Because at the end of the day, what readers want is an experience. They want to be touched by your story. They want to be moved. They want to be validated. They want to be inspired. They want to feel less alone. Sure, you can write just to entertain, and there's value in that too. And you can take any number of off-the-rack ideas like love or redemption, but the only way to get to the reader's emotions is to use yours, because you need to know what's driving you to write this story. You need to know why your character's journey is important to you. So what do you have in common with your main character? What fears, frustrations, confusions, what beliefs do you share with your main character? Now, to drive this all home, I've just created a free story starter guide with 9 prompts to help you write what matters to you so that you can start to explore your themes. Download yours at nancypanuccio.com/start. nancypanuccio.com/start. I'll link in the show notes. So let's recap. Number 1, theme evolves most intently from your deeply held beliefs about human nature and how the world works. It's not a moral statement. Number 2, theme involves desire and resistance. Number 3, theme helps you focus your story's material and give it coherence and resonance. Number 4, your thematic statement should be repeated throughout your story in different variations. It does not have to be verbatim. It does not have to be an overt statement. It just has to be implied. Number 5, to arrive at your theme, explore why your character's journey is important to you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Writer Unleashed. More free resources are available at nancypanuccio.com, so head on over there to grab your gifts. And if you want to connect with more like-minded writers and with me, join us in our private Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/Writer Unleashed community. It's totally free to join. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Till then, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.